Hi everyone, this is Dawn and I hope you had a fabulous weekend. I'm here with a short video to ask everyone that encounters this video, what story are you living in? A lot of times, without even knowing it, we are drawing on the collective consciousness and collective unconscious, for that matter, drawing on Carl Jung's concept. And we are falling into these stories, these themes that have been common throughout history. And those of us who are here as illumined ones are here to shift the story, to change the story. And I was reminded this morning by my choice in music and then a series of remembrances and flashbacks of how amazing it is when you choose to step out of the story that you feel you must be patterned into or living. And that subsequently brought me to some awarenesses about perhaps some divine masculines that I hadn't really fully understood. So without further ado, let me just kind of jump into where this all started for me. I put on the soundtrack to Les Mis this morning. I love the soundtrack, but I haven't listened to it in a while, quite frankly, because since 1998, I think, when I saw, again, the old version of that film, and then more recently, I believe in 2013, when I saw the remake. It's just a story that is tired to me. It's a great novel, one of the best novels, but it's time that we collectively and individually really break free from all the stories and live our own story. In living in full expression, step into a new story that we create, because we are the creators of our lives. So I had the soundtrack on for a little bit, and I turned it off because it reminded me of my own personal story and just like annoyed me. And so I turned it off, and then I thought, wait, there's something there. And so I found a series of emails that I had written back in 2013 when the remake came out, or it may have been 2012, but in any case, I found an email I'd written to a friend or someone I thought was a friend at that time, and I said, I was pretty sick for 3 weeks around Christmas, but I did see the film on Christmas Day. It's probably just fine that I was deliriously sick, as the story seems not to have changed. And the smiley face. My heart continues to resist the idea of remaining here. Not that I am capable of deliberately leaving at this moment, leaving that all to God, actually leaving everything to God, because that is all that is left. So clearly I was still in the midst of, pretty deep depression, and yet progress. I no longer could contemplate taking my own life. So I was making that turn out of that story. And this has been a persistent theme in my life for, my whole life, but certainly for 20 years at this point. And so the story of Les Mis, in case you don't know the story, I'll put the Wikipedia link below so you can read more about it, and do watch the movie. It's a great film, and beautiful music, and like I said, one of the best novels. But the story is that, after this Jean Valjean, who is the main character, is imprisoned for stealing bread, and after 19 years, he is freed by, I don't know how to pronounce it, but Javert, I'm going to call him, the officer, anyway, that was in charge of the workforce. And so Jean Valjean promptly breaks his parole, and then he uses the money from stolen silver to reinvent himself, and he becomes a mayor and a factory owner, so he makes something of himself. And Javert vows to bring Valjean, whatever, I don't know how to pronounce the names, back to prison. And so Valjean becomes this guardian of a little girl named Cosette after her mother passes away. But Javert's relentless pursuit means that peace will be a long time coming. So Javert, he is like obsessed with the pursuit and punishment, the letter of the law. He's obsessed with getting the escaped convict. And so the author of the novel, Victor Hugo, depicts him as this man who he's villainous, but he is Let me just read from Wikipedia. He is rather tragic in his misguided and self-destructive pursuit of justice. He was a compound, Hugo writes, of two sentiments, simple and good in themselves, but he made them almost evil by his exaggeration of them. Respect for authority is one, and hatred of rebellion is the second. He, Javert, the character, is absolute and a fanatic. This fanatical absolutism allows him to divine a straight path through all that is most torturous in the world. So in Javert's eyes, he sees himself as doing good, as restoring something. So Victor Hugo depicts Javert as a character who is not simply villainous, but again, tragic. Let's see. The backstory of Javert is fascinating. I had forgotten some of this. He had been born in prison. His mother was a fortune teller. His father was serving in the prison gallery. Just think about that for a second. So, and this speaks to ancestral lineage, right? A lot of us have been born into families where there is, something, a secret, and or some shame that runs through. It's passed down, and we respond to that usually in one of two ways, and become exaggerated in our ways of coping if we do not heal what's there to be healed. So Javert, the one that's pursuing, perceives himself to be excluded from a society that irrevocably closes its doors on two classes of men, those who attack it and those who guard it. It is on the basis of an irrepressible hatred for that bohemian race to which he belongs, and a personal foundation of rectitude, order, and honesty that he opts to become a law officer. So devoted is he to his choice that, Hugo writes, he would have arrested his own father if he escaped from prison and turned in his own mother for breaking parole. And he would have done it with that sort of interior satisfaction that springs from virtue. Following his encounters with Jean Valjean during the June Rebellion, in which he is first spared by Valjean, so the one pursuing is spared by the prisoner, Javert experiences a deep torment caused by the compromise of his previous worldview. Where previously he has never in his life known anything but one straight line, the kind behavior of Valjean compels him to see two both equal, straight, and contradictory. So he sees the two, in other words, the two worlds. The profound confusion caused by this, by the realization that the law is not infallible, that he himself is not irreproachable, and that there exists a superior force identified by Hugo with God to what he has known, plunges him into a despair in which he feels himself demolished. It is to escape this unnatural state that he commits suicide, which is tragic, of course. And so reminding myself of that backstory, because I haven't read the novel in quite some time, it really tied into the recent things I've been shown about the Divine Masculine Collective. And it literally has spun their worlds, whatever this realization, to whatever degree they may have had it. And they are having difficulty reconciling it. And then on top of that, regarding my last video, there are a portion of Divine Masculines that literally they have been compromised. And I'm still not sure, the details of that, but you can watch the last video to just, hear what I received on that. So many of them are, just in an extreme, like we know, Dark Night of the Stolen, in an extremely confused state about this and trying to reconcile. And so I want to speak for a minute to the journey that I made with regard to this, because I too had it was a little different. Divine Feminine are doing this differently, right? And but I had a belief that it would be a certain way, so I had my own story. It wasn't Les Mis, but I had my own story, and so I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole because it's deep. But we all Divine Feminine tend to have the fairy tale that lives inside of us, and we also tend to have the story we've told ourselves about who we are, and that's where there's some divergence in terms of that story. And I remember back in, for me, this is about, I think it was like 1999, 2000. So this is my Dark Knight years. And I remember I was gonna write a novel. I was like, I'm gonna turn this to good. I was gonna take what had happened in my life, the little shake up, the Dark Knight, and I was gonna carry the banner, and I was going to do a number of things. And so part of that was about, trying to stay true to my mission. But the other part was like, I was gonna take what had happened, and I was going to write a novel, and it was going to be called An Honorable Man. And in the novel, so I remember I went to a writers' conference in the mountains of North Carolina, and it was a great writers' conference, and I had the novel about, outlined, and I had the first, I don't know, 5 or 6 chapters. And I remember meeting with a writing tutor who, was encouraging me to finish it. He was having trouble believing, that there could be something so powerful, because pretty much I was writing my story with my experience with my divine counterpart at that time, which was about the catalytic events and the that moment of awareness. And so I remember him using my opening to my novel, the first few chapters, as a model. And well, he used several different, but for mine, he chose to use it as a model of a novel. He was talking about plot lines, and I didn't even know what I was writing, but the plot was essentially that was a reversal of fortune. Okay, so it starts out with like this pivotal, event, and we see somebody, in the midst of their own beliefs, the male character in this point in the story, and we just like, it's just jarring, and it's like so exaggerated that it almost doesn't seem like it could be possible. And then, through the course of the story, the female, they swap, and but I realized I stopped writing that novel about, in the early 2000s, because I realized that is not the story. That's not the ending I wanted. That's not the ending I wanted. And so I went through this process of returning to what was true underneath everything else, which was the unconditional love, and which is, tying back to Les Mis, that's where Jean Valjean gets to, because this man has been relentless in destroying his life and dismantling it. And he gets to this place of love, and he's sad at Javert's choice, and that Javert cannot return to that place. And so when I shifted my own story, both the one that I was creating, right? Because to tell this story, even with the happy ending for me, it felt like, no, it felt like that is not aligned with why I am here, with who I am, with who my counterpart is. It's not. And so I came to a different place, and that was a journey and a process for me. And so while many of us have been in this place of, to the best of our ability of forgiveness and unconditional love for some time, there's a need to give that space for any who are in the midst of that, of just, that jarring place. If they're just there, we cannot expect them to believe this could be possible, because in my process anyway, there were lots, it was back and forth, right? It was a weaving, it was a slow unfolding, and there were many days, months, and even years when I wavered, or even when I persisted and knew where I was, it felt very much like there was no hope for a different ending. And so to anyone who is watching this, whether divine feminine, divine masculine, or anyone else for that matter, just create the story that you wish to live, and then release all expectation of how that story is lifted and raised up. So that's just one little thing that we can do along the way today. So to and to allow others, and particularly those that we love so deeply, and those who are us, allow that uh, to to take the course it takes, and know that nothing is lost.